Happy lunch hour, guys. All right. So, if y'all are like me, hopefully at least, chances are you are starting or in the midst of your harvest. Okay. Grabbing whatever you can and way out your garden, eating it, canning it, freezing it, dehydrating it, doing whatever. And the question that comes up all the time, and every single one of you has either said this or had somebody in your household say it. Don't we have enough already? Okay. Or where am I going to put more? I don't have any room for any more. I can't do it. I want to give you this. And if there's anything that will hopefully wake up somebody that is in your family that thinks you're nuts, or however you want to put it when you're thinking about this, I just want you to think about this. All right. Now, if you're like me, doing a lot of canning, I want to give you this. 1 quart of food is enough food for one meal for one day for one person. Okay? Be it a bowl of chili or a bowl of soup or a bowl of stew or whatever. Okay? That's it. It's one bowl. And if that was your entire caloric intake for the day, that's what you have. All right? One meal. How much do you need to have stored? Okay. Well, 365 quart jars would be enough food for one meal for one person for 1 year. 365. That's a lot of jars, okay? That's 30 cases of mason jars, guys. Okay? Want 2 meals? That's 730 jars. Have a spouse? 2 meals? 1,460 jars. Have 2 kids? You're the typical nuclear family? 2,920 jars of food. Anybody got 2,920 jars of food in the house? That's 1 year for a family of 4. Just saying. Okay. And I know there's going to be people that are going to say, oh, but Pinball, I have a garden. I have livestock. I have chickens. I'll forage. I'll eat fresh too. Agreed. Okay. Sure. So will I. All right. But how much of that will you actually be able to harvest or slaughter? Do you really think the hungry masses, the ones that are roaming the countryside, kind of like the ones I talked about this morning, won't do anything they can for a tomato, for a chicken, for a cow? Okay. Yes. All right. You need to have food stocked, stored, protected, scattered all over the place. All right. I've said many times the average person eats 2,000 pounds of food a year. Actually, it's 1,999, but okay, for the sake of math. In SHTF, I'm betting that's going to be less, but honestly, how much less? Like I said, 1 quart of food per day per person. That ain't 2,000 pounds, guys. All right. I want to give you a story here, a little historical perspective on food. Okay. I'm going to go back to 1941, World War II. On June 22nd, 1941, the Nazis decided to go after Leningrad, okay, now known as St. Petersburg. Okay. Second largest industrial city in the Soviet Union, behind only Moscow. Now, Leningrad / St. Petersburg is located in northern Russia near the Finnish border on the Baltic Sea. Not exactly what you call a tropical paradise. To give you an idea, just so you can get an idea what living conditions are, it's on the same parallel as the Shetland Islands in Great Britain, Quebec, Canada, or Seward, Alaska. Okay? So you can kind of get an idea that it might be a little cold and not exactly where you're going to have long growing seasons, right? Hitler had decided to erase the city of Leningrad from the face of the earth. Okay, he intended to encircle it, level it to the grounds with anything he had, artillery bombardment, you know, bombing runs from planes, you name it. Okay, surrender negotiations, according to Hitler, were to be ignored, since the Nazis didn't have any interest in feeding the city's population, about 3 million people. Just give you a reference. New York City today has 8.5 million people, and I pretty much say it's the number one target in the world. Okay. Hitler had chosen a chilling alternative to advancing on Leningrad directly, putting his troops in harm's way. He was going to simply wait for Leningrad to starve to death. Okay? Soviet officials had been very, very negligent in stockpiling food, so they had to bring in supplies across Lake Ladoga. All right? It was the only open route into the city, as the Germans had captured every road, every railroad, every other way of accessing the city. So the only way to come in was via barge. And then of course when the lake froze in the winter, they could bring sleds and trucks in. Okay. The Ladoga route wound up called the Route of Life. Okay. But again, 3 million people. Let's bring in a lot of food. Okay. By November 1941, mind you, this is 5 months after the siege started. Okay. Not even. Okay. Because again, the siege started near the end of the month. So 4.5 months. All right. Food shortages in Leningrad had seen civilian rations cut to 250 grams of bread a day for workers. Children, the elderly, and the unemployed got 125 grams of bread. 3 small slices of bread for the day. That's it. Okay. Of course, the winter of 1941 was extremely cold. It was actually something that helped Russia defeat the advancing troops, was the cold winters. Okay. But Leningrad got rocked by a starvation epidemic. Okay. There were 100,000 people dying from starvation a month in the winter of 1941, 1942. Okay. People were burning furniture and books to keep warm. What little heat they could get out of burning a book. That was survival. All right. This is where we get into it. People ate everything from petroleum jelly, Vaseline, okay, sawdust, many stories on people making loaves of bread out of sawdust, wallpaper glue, rats, pigeons, and household pets. Okay, that's what people were eating to survive. Theft and murder for ration cards was rampant. Okay, to give you an idea how bad it was, the authorities eventually arrested over 2,000 people for cannibalism. In early 1942, okay, once spring rolled around, the Soviets were able to evacuate about 500,000 people from the city, leaving them with about 1 million people left in the city. Remember, about 9 months earlier, the population was 3 million. So if they got a 500,000 out, there's 1 million left. That means half of the population of Leningrad died in 9 months. Okay? So in 1942, spring rolls around eventually, which there is late May, early June. Okay. The remaining people did whatever they could to grow anything possible. By 1943, the Soviets had recaptured one of the bridges, which allowed them to start moving supplies back into Leningrad. Okay. Eventually, they were able to move in about 5 million tons of food. 1 million people, 5 million tons. Do the math. 2,000 pounds per person per year. Okay. On January 27th, 1944, after about 900 days, Leningrad was finally free. In total, the siege of Leningrad killed about 800,000 civilians, starvation, and about 700,000 military personnel. Just the civilian casualty count alone was nearly as many as all the deaths of all the troops and all the civilians of the United States and Great Britain combined in one event. 900 days. That's nearly 2.5 years. How much food is enough again? You tell me.